Are you ready for some football? Football's back. Hope you're all having a great Thursday. We get to watch two shitty teams in an hour. Go at it. But hope your week's going good as always. And welcome to another edition of Giants Collective. Got Adriana down there, Anthony over there, Chris down there. As always, huge shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring the first part of the Giants Collective show tonight. Greatly appreciate it. You guys can check us out on TikTok and Instagram. You can check us out on iHeart, Amazon, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you check us out on Apple, leave a 5-star review. That would greatly help. And, of course, if you want to become a member, just click that little join button. You get those cool emojis. You get the monthly member messages, and you get your name in the outros. So that'd be really cool. As always, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell. Giants Collective's here all year for you guys, and we feel like it's going to be a good season for the Giants, at least right now. We feel pretty optimistic about this season. And, of course, it kicks off in 3 days. Number 3, Russell Wilson. Adriana, give us your take on what you think is going to go on here on Sunday in Washington. Muted.
Thank you. I'm excited. I'm starting to get a little nervous as it gets closer. I'm going to be there, and I just can't handle a week 1 loss. I just need them to get it together and to win. I think the biggest concern that I have about this whole team right now is Andrew Thomas, because we all know that when Andrew Thomas is not on the field, it's a very different offense. But I was just trying to talk myself off the ledge a little bit. And I think there's a couple reasons as to why, even if Andrew Thomas doesn't play, we still have a shot at winning the game. The first thing is obviously the defense is significantly better, and the Commanders have a rookie right tackle. So I think our defensive line is going to take advantage of that and hopefully going to feast on him. So I think there is an added benefit. The second thing is it's not Joshua Ezeudu at left tackle. So at least we have, look, James Hudson is not great by any means, but he's played the position. He's played with this offensive line throughout the whole summer and throughout preseason. So there is a little bit of continuity there, and he has experience playing the position. And in the very worst case scenario that James Hudson is out there and he looks god-awful and brings in a bunch of penalties, then they have 2 other options. They can move Luminor to left tackle and put Marcus Bowe in at right tackle, which I think is probably the best case scenario or safest, just because it's Russ's blind side. I'd rather have a Luminor there. As much as I like Bowe, I don't think he has a ton of experience yet at left tackle, but they could also put him at left tackle and then only move one person as opposed to shifting guys around. So I think at the very least, the Giants have options at the offensive line where maybe in the past without Andrew Thomas, they didn't really have that. But, Malik Neighbors and Kayvon Thibodeau, 2 guys who historically play really well against the Commanders. I'm excited to see both of them. I just think there's a lot of players to be excited about. And at the very least, I'm happy to see them back out on the field. Just be excited that Giants football is back.
Yep. Anthony, what do you think is going to happen besides this whooping their ass?
I do think we'll win, and I think that it's going to be a tight one. I agree, Adriana. There's definitely a level of concern that I have with this offensive line without Andrew Thomas, but I'll say I think that the offensive line looked better. Even the backups looked better during the preseason. They were playing as a unit, and so I feel like Carmen Brasillo maybe got them in check for the season. Now, I've had that hope before, though, and it's all fallen apart on me, so I'm hoping that that doesn't happen again. But I really think what this game comes down to is the Giants' defensive line versus Jaden Daniels. Can they get home? Can they get a few sacks? Can they contain him and prevent him from getting out of the pocket and making plays with his legs? That's what this game is going to boil down to for me. I'm confident in Malik Neighbors. I'm confident in Russell Wilson. I think this offense is going to be at least serviceable, but you got to slow down Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. And not only Jaden Daniels, but I don't care who's running the football for them. They always seem to have a good rushing attack when it comes to playing the Giants. So there needs to be a way for the Giants to slow down the Commanders' rushing attack. So those are the 2 big things for me, and it all circles around the trenches. The offensive line needs to hold up without Andrew Thomas, but the defensive line has to get home on the pass rush and has to slow down the rushing attack of the Washington Commanders.
Chris, how you feeling about the game on Sunday?
Well, I don't love that Andrew Thomas is questionable at this point. I've said countless times that I think he's the biggest key to the offense this year. I think if he doesn't play, I don't think they move Luminor. They didn't move him last year. He didn't show much of a willingness to want to play on the left side. I think Hudson would probably get the nod at least to start the game. And if he's doing atrocious, maybe Bo sees some action. But that's what my guess would be as to what they would do. But we'll find out on Sunday with the offensive line. But I think if Thomas is out, Giants probably take a heavy run approach, probably a lot of 2 tight end sets to try to minimize the damage that the Washington defense can do. And they'll try to hit some neighbors with some big plays when the opportunities are there. But I expect to see a heavy load of Tyrone Tracy in the running game in this game if they could get the ground game established if Andrew Thomas is not playing. On the other side, I completely agree with both of what was said. The defensive line for the Giants is going to make or break this game. At the end of the day, we've said countless times now that you've added Abdul Carter, that you're not going to be able to double team Dexter Lawrence. That's where this game is going to be won and lost for the Giants if they're going to win it. You have to be able to create pressure up the middle, and the guys on the edge have to be able to set the corner, set the edge, and not allow Jaden Daniels to extend big plays. I got some key stats last year for the Commanders that I'm worried about from a defensive standpoint. Last year, mainly due to Jaden Daniels' dual threat capabilities, the Washington Commanders led the league in 4th down conversions. 87% of the time they converted on 4th down. They were 3rd in the NFL in 3rd down conversion rate, and they were 6th in red zone offense. I think a lot of that, most of it, if not all of it, is because of Jaden Daniels. And you have to be able to create pressure up the middle, and you have to be able to set the edge so he can't extend plays with his legs. That's the biggest key of this game for me. If the defense could show up, get pressure on Jaden Daniels, create a few mistakes, Giants are going to have every opportunity to win this football game.
Yeah, hard to disagree with anything that any of you guys said. The one big thing for the Giants to me, obviously you got to contain Jaden Daniels. Yeah, you got to get pressure up the middle of Dex. That way he can't step up in the pocket. But again, you don't want him to get outside contain on the corners because that way he can make plays with his arm. He can make plays with his leg. You do not want him getting outside of the defensive end. So if Dex does get that pressure up the middle and Jaden Daniels has to roll out to his right or left, you would hope Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, or Abdul Carter's there to clean up the mess, or at least put some pressure on it where he can't throw the football deep. He can't really go throw on it. He can't run for those extra yards. We can't have Jaden Daniels extending plays. If Washington wants to run the ball, so be it. Let them do that. I'd rather them beat us with whatever his name is, Krosky, Merritt, and Eckler, and whoever the hell else they got back there that's my age. Well, Merritt's not, obviously, but Eckler's like my age. Their whole team's my age. I mean, they're all going for their AARP card here very soon. So Jaden Daniels, to me, is absolutely the key for us to stop on defense. When it comes to offense, yeah, I don't expect Andrew Thomas to play all year. I just don't depend on him. I'm sure he'll play at some point, but we got to go forward without him. It is a major concern. I hate that. He is our best lineman. Our linemen are obviously a lot better when he's in the game. But I think if the Giants can establish a run, it enhances play action majorly. And if those guys got to step up, if those linebackers step up and they hesitate for a second, Russ ain't hanging on to the ball like Daniel Jones is. He's going to let it rip. He's going to throw the ball deep. He's going to throw the ball to the tight end of the slot. He's going to hit Wandale, on a slant. And, he's going to lead him. Russ is going to get rid of the ball a lot quicker than Daniel Jones did, which could nullify some of the pass rush, even if Andrew Thomas is out. But I agree, this game's one of the trenches. And if the Giants can play a stalemate on offense and just be average, but our defense can do the job, we have a chance to win this game. We're going to win this game. We should have won the first game last year. And I don't care what Commander fans say about, we committed penalties. That's your fault. We didn't dress a kicker. That's our fault. And the second game, you can say you kneeled at the 1 yard line, but the game was close the whole time. It's not like they blew the Giants out. And this Giants defense is so much better, and the quarterback is so much better. And I look forward to some big plays. It's something that we really didn't hit Washington with last year. And I think there's big plays to be had. So that's going to be up to Russ and the offensive line. But I feel like the Giants always match up well with Washington. If we can contain Jaden, you're not going to shut them down, but if you can contain them, we win this game, and we win it convincingly. That's right, because Giants football is back. Giants football is back. Anthony, do you have a key besides Malik Neighbors? Obviously, because I think Neighbors is the focal point of our offense. Do you have a guy that you're sitting there saying this guy has to step up? Because Neighbors is going to. Who else needs to step up with the Giants in offense?
On the offensive side of the ball, I think obviously the quarterback position is the big change that the Giants made. So it's Russell Wilson, but that feels too obvious. I'll say Tyrone Tracy Jr. I think if the Giants can set the tone on the ground, if Tracy can pick up some good yardage and just give the offense a rhythm, the rest of the pieces can click into place. I think that will open things up for Russell Wilson, which will then, of course, open things up for Malik Neighbors. And then Malik Neighbors is going to open things up for the other receivers by drawing double teams. So, but I really think that starts on the ground. You don't want this team to be one-dimensional. If you can somehow force Washington to play some loaded boxes and you get some more one-on-one opportunities for Neighbors and for Slayton and Wan'Dale to have more room to roam on the outside, then your whole offense is going to move a lot more smoothly. So I think if Tyrone Tracy Jr. can be effective, control the clock, set a tempo, that's going to open things up for the passing game, which is when you're going to see a lot more one-on-one opportunities, and Russell Wilson's going to hit those patented moon balls.
Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, as I just said, I think Tracy is going to be the biggest key to the running game in general. If Andrew Thomas is not playing, is going to be a massive key for the Giants offensively in this game. You don't want James Hudson in obvious pass situations as your blindside protector. You just don't. That's not ideal if Andrew Thomas isn't going to play. So I'll take it away from Tracy. I'll go with the interior offensive line has to get a good push up front. Whether that, JMS, that group has to win more often than not because they have to be able to establish a ground attack in this game. By no means do I want them to only throw the ball 10 or 15 times like we've been accustomed to. I definitely want to see big plays, especially with Malik Neighbors on the field. But the Giants have to establish a ground game week one, I think, if they're going to win this game, if Andrew Thomas isn't going to play.
Adriana, what do you think?
Yeah, the other thing that I would add to Tracy is just can't turn the ball over. Same thing with Singletary, especially in red zone situations. Yeah. We've seen that from both of them over the last year. And when you're a football team that already plays games very closely and has issues like penalties and things like that, you can't afford to turn the ball over. So I would say on offense, I'm going to say Jalen Hyatt because I think there is a chance that we see him for a couple snaps and I just want him to make plays. So if you're out there and you have the target, you have to come down with the ball. I don't care what it takes. So, I think we could say that about Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale. They both have been guilty of having some drops too, but I have more faith in them than I do in Jalen Hyatt. So, we heard all summer about how him and Russ are lock in step and they're so tight and on top of everything and whatever. So I want to see that in action. Jalen Hyatt was less than exciting to watch in preseason. Yes, he had that touchdown, also had a couple drops. So if he gets the opportunity to get the ball, he's got to make a play because it could make a big difference for this team.
You make a great point about the turnovers. The Giants got to win the turnover battle. I believe it was, I don't know if it was the first or second game. I think it was the first game we played. We were driving down the field, starting the second half. We got past midfield and Singletary fumbled the football. And that was obviously, those are momentum shifts. I feel like the Giants defense, especially the secondary being improved, is good enough to make some turnovers, get a short field for this offense. And if they're able to do that, the Giants got to capitalize and they got to score sevens in this game. They definitely can't kick field goals. You got to score. Washington is an explosive offensive team, and you got to make sure that you score points when they have the opportunity to. To me, obviously, establishing the running game is huge, but I think Wan'Dale Robinson is totally a guy that could have a really big game. I feel like Washington will definitely key on Malik Neighbors. They may even key on Darius Slayton. If you have to get rid of the ball, if the Giants are having a hard time, holding up some of that pass rush, Wan'Dale's a guy that can really, gets free off the line of scrimmage. And with Russ throwing the ball on time, Wan'Dale's the yak guy. He's the guy that's supposed to turn 5-yard passes into 15-yard first downs. And I feel like he could be targeted a lot in this game, especially early on. I feel like Russ might just kind of, dink and dunk a little bit before they open up the offense. And maybe they go completely opposite. Maybe the Giants throw the ball deep a couple of times, loosen up the defense, and then establish a running game. But the good thing is we know we can do both now. We know we have a quarterback that has no problem stretching the field and going deep. So I think the Giants can be a lot less predictable on offense, and that's going to allow them to score more points than they did last year, not just in this game, but all season long. So definitely looking forward to that. And before we go on to the next point, again, big shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring the show all year long. Guys, go to Sleeper, check it out. They got some really cool things. I love Sleeper. It's a lot of fun. You're going up to 1,000 times your bet. You can place in-game contests. They only have a $1 minimum entry for users. Entries can be made within 30 seconds or less. It's really that easy. They have updated scoring to track your fantasy players. You can also do daily fantasy, NBA, MLB, hockey, college football, college basketball, WNBA. They're also going to be adding soccer and esports in the coming months. So check them out. Always, they have a great promotion. You see that down there? When you sign up at Sleeper, use the promo code HMA. You get a dollar for dollar match all the way up to $100 on your first deposit. So make sure that you enter that promo code HMA. Link is in the description below. Let's hear from the sponsor. 30 seconds back after this.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using the code HMA. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
Alrighty, just under the gun. But yes, check out Sleeper. Appreciate them sponsoring the show. Is there something you guys are looking forward to tonight, Chris? Obviously, the Cowboys and Eagles. Tilt happens here in about an hour. What are you looking for from the Cowboys and Eagles, if anything?
I hope it's a tie, and I hope there's no points scored, and both teams look horrible, and I hate both teams to death. But no, I mean, listen, I'm ashamed to say I showed you guys my fantasy team in the group chat. I have a lot of Eagles and Cowboys in that team. I've got Barkley, I've got Dak, I've got CeeDee Lamb, and I think
how many teams in your league that you can get Barkley and CeeDee Lamb? I'm just curious how that even works.
Oh, it's the same format as you. It's 2 quarterbacks. So, like you said earlier, quarterbacks go early. The first 6 picks were quarterbacks. It's a non-keeper league. So there wasn't a non-quarterback that went until pick 7.
How many teams do you have?
11. There's a bye. It's a roto league rather, so it's not a head-to-head. It's 11 teams. And yeah, I ended up, unfortunately, Neighbors went to pick before me. I was going to take Neighbors and Barkley, but I ended up with CD and
Lamb and fantasy
on the 10-11. But I expect to have a good fantasy night because I think the Eagles will get off to a good start. They'll ground and pound with Saquon Barkley, so I'll get my points that way. And the Cowboys will be playing catch-up with CD and Dak. I think the Eagles win relatively easily. I'll say 31-21, and I don't even think it's as close as that final score indicates. I think maybe the Cowboys get a late touchdown to make it look a little prettier than what it really is. I think the Eagles win this game handily tonight.
Yeah, I got Jalen Hurts going in this one, so I expect at least 3 tush-push touchdowns. Get me off to a good start. Adriana, do you have a prediction for this game tonight? I'm sure we're all on the same page, but
yeah, I think the Eagles are going to smoke them. All my parlays are basically on the Eagles players to score touchdowns. I have Saquon 90+ rushing yards. I just think the Eagles or the Cowboys run defense is not going to be very good this year, especially without Micah. They have a rookie head coach. They have no run game. You know, Dak is coming back from an injury. I just think there's so many question marks around Dallas. And unfortunately for all of us, we all know the Eagles probably got better this offseason and they're coming off a Super Bowl win. So the reality is the Eagles are one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league again this year. Hopefully not, but for right now they are. And I just think Dallas doesn't have a chance. I think it's not going to be close, but I could totally see a scenario like what Chris said, where they get a garbage time touchdown and the final score seems a little bit closer. But I also have the Eagles defense scoring a defensive touchdown. So I have the Eagles defense in fantasy, so I'm really rooting for that. But, you know, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Dak throws a pick 6. So Cooper DeJean, I don't care who it is. Let's go. One of you, do it.
Anthony, how bad do you think this game is tonight for Dallas? Or do you think Dallas pulls the upset? I saw somebody in the chat say Dallas pulls the upset.
You know,
any chance?
I think I'm going to be a little different here and predict the upset. You know, why not? It's week 1, and I think in week 1, in the NFL, anything can happen on any given Sunday. But in week 1 in particular, that's where you see a lot of upsets. You see Super Bowl winning teams have that Super Bowl hangover. Maybe they just go into the game a little bit too excited and a little bit too overconfident. We've seen Giants teams beat overconfident teams before. Maybe the Eagles are overconfident going into this one. Cowboys sneak up on them and get a win. I would like to see the Cowboys win. Any day that the Eagles lose, is a good day. I hate the Eagles more than anything. I can tolerate the Cowboys, to be honest, but I hate the Eagles. So I want to see the Cowboys win tonight. And I also do have CeeDee Lamb in fantasy, so I hope he catches like 5 touchdowns and makes this an easy week 1 win for me. So, but no, I think there is a chance that Dallas could win. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Dallas. Obviously, they lost Micah Parsons. Yes, their defense on paper is atrocious, but their offense should be fully functioning. They've got CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott. I mean, he's not perfect, but he can sling it and he can put up a lot of points. I could see this being a sloppy week 1, rusty teams shootout. And I think that Dallas can hang with them if that's the case. So and all it takes then is just one play down the stretch. So I'm not going to rule out Dallas. I don't think I'll actually officially pick them if I had to. But for the sake of the argument, I'll say that they're going to get the upset win in a shootout.
I don't really care who wins. I'm with you, Anthony. I wouldn't say I can tolerate the Cowboys. I freaking hate them, but I hate the Eagles with every fiber of my being. And I think it would be funny if the Eagles did lose. I actually think that'd be funny to see their reaction because they think it's going to be a cakewalk. I also think it's going to be a cakewalk. I really don't think it's going to be close. But what I do hope happens tonight, regardless of the final score, is that Philadelphia physically beats the holy shit out of this team because we play the Cowboys next week. So I want Philadelphia to soften them the hell up, knock them the hell around, just beat the ever-loving shit out of them. Even though Dallas is going to have a couple extra days, I want Philadelphia to wear these guys out so that, they're slim pickings for us next week. The only thing that sucks is if Dallas goes in 0-1. Chris, I think you mentioned this a couple weeks ago or a couple shows ago. Dallas will be really desperate playing us because no team wants to start off 0-2 in this division. So, but I do think Philadelphia will win. I think Dallas's defense is really bad. I think Philadelphia's defense is really good. Dallas will definitely score some points. I mean, Dak can sling it. CeeDee Lamb's one of the best receivers in football. They added George Pickens. I don't really like their running game at all. But I think Dallas is good enough to score, 17, 21. But I think Philadelphia is going to be in the 30s. And I think they're going to win rather handedly. But I would love it to be, like I said, like Anthony said, a close, tight battle. That'd be a lot of fun to watch without question. I thought I saw somebody in the chat say that Andrew Thomas was ruled out week 1. Was that right?
If that's not official yet, it certainly seems like it's trending that way from everything that you read. So yeah. But I agree with Anthony, by the way. Even though I'm predicting it to be a rather comfortable win for the Eagles, I could certainly see it close. We see, I remember 2 years ago, the Browns beat the Bengals opening week when the Bengals, I think, were coming off a Super Bowl appearance. So you see shockers in the NFL, especially early on in the year. So it's a divisional game. That's why we watch. It's certainly a possibility this could be a really close game tonight. But on paper, the Eagles are a much better team right now.
Well, and I also think that's such a good point, too, is that you never really know. And that's why, so many Giants fans are so upset about the schedule and this and that. But at the end of the day, we don't know how this team is actually going to play. They could come out week 1 and look like a completely different team than what we saw last year. And, I think Dable talks a lot of bullshit, but he is right in the sense that every year is different and it's a new year. Mike Kafka's calling the plays again. They added Abdul Carter. They added secondary help. Like they did a lot of good things this offseason. So yes, the schedule is tough, but you never know until you play the game. So I think if we're going to make that argument for Dallas, I think Giants fans have to look in the mirror and say, why can't we do that too? And I'm not saying be delusional and say, why can't we go to the playoffs and win a Super Bowl? Like that, I think is probably a little extreme, but I think it's fair to say, like, why can't we beat the Commanders week 1? You never know.
I think we can.
Yeah. The schedule is last year. Who did these teams play last year to get those records? Like there's a lot that goes into it. And Dable did mention every year is different. We thought we were on the come up. Coming off of 2022, we went right into shitter. It got worse each year. I'm not saying the Commanders are going to be a bad team. As a matter of fact, I predicted them to win 11 games this year, but I'm not predicting. We're going to split, but we're winning game 1. The Giants have a lot to prove, without question. I think the Commanders probably take the Giants a little easy. They say, we swept these guys last year. They're no good. Who cares about an old-ass Russell Wilson? We did this. Nobody's scared of their defense. We added Laramie Tunsil and blah, blah, blah. I hope everybody overlooks the Giants because I think that's what happened with the Commanders. Not only did Jaden Daniels have a great year, but I think a lot of people overlooked Washington because who the hell was Washington before last year? So, why can't we do that? Why can't we win 10 games? Oh, the schedule's tough. Compared to what? How do you know what any of these teams are going to be week 7? You have no clue.
Yeah.
It just looks tough on paper, but when you're there on Sunday, we don't play the game on paper. It's all about matchups. It's all about winning the turnover battle. It's all about lack of penalties. It's about making big plays, and that's what it's about. Every game is different. Every game is its own season. So the Giants can't be look at how tough our schedule is the whole year. They got to be looking at Washington and going, this is what we have to do to beat them. Whatever Philadelphia did to Washington last year, Washington was really good about not turning the ball over. But the last 2 games they played Philadelphia, they turned it over 9 times in those 2 games. Even though Washington was able to win a game where they turned it over 5 times. They won't win if they turn it over 5 times against us. There's tape out on Jaden Daniels. People have made adjustments. This is why quarterbacks, I'm not saying Jaden Daniels is going to go through a quarterback like a sophomore slump, but a lot of times they will take a step back their second year because they have to readjust to what defenses have now done to them. It's going to be a good game. The divisional games are always tough. And I do think the Giants are going to find a way to win. I really do. Call me crazy. I've been called worse. And funny thing is, somebody said to me on Twitter, because I'm like, these Commander fans, man, they haven't won anything in 35 years, and they act like they're a Super Bowl powerhouse. You ain't won anything. And the guy says, oh, that's hypocritical, man. We're being optimistic. You've been talking shit all offseason. I'm like, dude, I've talked shit for years. My team has sucked for years. I'm here every week, every year. I didn't just show up when the Giants were good, like the Commander fans. That's what happened. All of a sudden, they came out of nowhere because they were nowhere to be found, much like Eagle fans before 2017. It's funny how that happens. This fan base stays all the time, and they take the punishment all the time, and this fan base deserves a good freaking football season. And I think the Giants are going to give it to them this year. I really do.
We'll see.
Anthony, on Washington, besides Jaden Daniels, who's the one guy you think the Giants have to be concerned with? I mean, Jaden Daniels is the obvious answer, but if there's an X factor for Washington, who do you think that is? It could be on either side of the ball, mind you.
It's definitely Terry McLaurin for me. I think when you look at the way that the Giants match up with Washington, I like their chances of getting home, the defensive line versus the offensive line. I think obviously the Giants' offensive line is a forever question, but the big question last year was the cornerback room for the Giants going into the season, and we got our answer pretty quickly that they didn't have enough talent in that room. This offseason, they went ahead and invested $100 million into their secondary between Javon Holland, Paulson Adebo, and some other signings. Paulson Adebo is the new CB1, and he needs to match up and be the CB1 against Terry McLaurin, because I know we've talked a lot about McLaurin. Could he be rusty coming out of training camp where he didn't really practice at all? Or him and Jaden Daniels going to be on the same page or not? I mean, if he's not covered, he's going to get the ball. And so you got to have a good cornerback on a talent like Terry McLaurin. And I think that's where Paulson Adebo really comes into play and hopefully makes his mark in week 1 against McLaurin. And hopefully, I think that Deonte Banks, I looked at the All-22 today. I was watching that and I posted it on my Twitter. I thought he did a fine job against Terry McLaurin last year outside of a couple of plays. I watched every single target in coverage for McLaurin versus Banks, and I would say Banks won at least half of those reps. So I think the Giants do have what they need to match up with Washington's receiving core. I think the secondary is really upgraded from where it was last year, but that's the number one X factor for Washington that I think you need to keep an eye on, because when Terry McLaurin is on and playing his best ball, he is one of the best wide receivers in football. So Paulson Adebo really needs to step up.
Chris, who do you think is the X factor for Washington?
I would have said McLaurin too, but I got to say something different now because Anthony took my answer. But obviously McLaurin, hopefully we're hoping he's a little bit rusty because he didn't practice with them basically all offseason with the contract dispute. So we'll see if he comes out a little rusty, but he certainly would be my answer. But if I have to pick another weapon in that offense that worries me a bit, especially with the dual threat capability of a Jaden Daniels, I think Debo, they could get creative with him. I watched some of their preseason games. They use Debo a lot in the run game on the couple of drives that I did watch the Commanders. I think he is a guy that could create some big plays, not just through the air, but on the ground. And he's a tough guy. He's a tough runner. He's a guy that I feel like could give an offense momentum. He's one of my favorite players to watch in the league. He gets hurt a lot, but I'll go Debo. If I can't say McLaurin, I'm going to say Debo. I think he's definitely a big play threat. He's not a guy that's probably going to have 150 yards, but he could have some crucial first downs in that game and create some big plays that could shift momentum from within the game. So I'll go Debo if I'm not going to go McLaurin.
Adriana, what do you think?
I would probably go either Zach Ertz, since we have a history of not being able to cover the tight end, and he's played pretty well against the Giants, of course, every time we seem to play him. And then I also would say Von Miller, because I think he's a little bit older and, he's not what he used to be. But if we have question marks on our offensive line and Andrew Thomas is not out there, Von Miller is probably going to go straight for James Hudson. So I'm a little worried about that matchup if that's the case. So I think between those two guys specifically there, we're probably going to have a little bit of our work cut out for us.
One guy I'm worried about is their all-pro. I'm pretty sure he was an all-pro. If not, he should have been, and that's Frankie Louvu. And he had a great year last year, and he can be a really big-time disruptor on defense. So I kind of worry about him on the defensive side of the ball. Giants got to find a way to contain him, make sure he's not making plays, deflecting passes, getting pressure on Russ. They got to keep him under contain. But I'm going to go another way here with Washington, and that's the rookie, the Krosky Merritt, or Bill, as he's known. The Giants, the running defense is probably the biggest question on this defense. It hasn't been good. You would think with the addition of Abdul Carter that they shouldn't be able to double team Dex. You'd also hope that they can move Abdul Carter inside, and Chauncey Golston can give you some extra depth there, as well as playing some nickel to get the most athletes on the field and contain Jaden Daniels, but also bring a guy like Tyler Nubin or Drew Phillips up into the box. So maybe you're, putting some guys up there if you can't stop the run. But that's a guy, he has big play capability. You don't want Washington to have these 15, 18, 25-yard runs, because that's the type of thing that kills the defense. So Giants got to find a way to stop these guys early on, put them in third down situations, and make it an obvious passing situation so that these guys can pin their ears back and go after Jaden Daniels. And when they go after him, they got to get him on the ground. Like, they have to get him on the ground. But I still feel pretty good about it. With that said, that brings us to the second part of Giants Collective, and this portion is brought to you by our friends at SeatGeek. Big shout out to SeatGeek, also sponsoring Giants Collective all season long. Let's hear from the sponsor 80 seconds back after this with your questions and comments. What's going on, guys and gals? You looking for a fun activity? You want to get out of the house? You need something to do? Are you looking for a great gift idea? Well, if so, look no farther than the sponsor of Giants Collective, which is SeatGeek. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There's more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. Giants season is underway. And say you want to check out Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders at MetLife Stadium? Well, it's easy. Just go to SeatGeek, scroll around, look for the tickets that you want, and SeatGeek's going to have your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dots. That's good. The red dots, well, it's not so good. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use the code Giants Collective for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with the promo code Giants Collective. Make sure you click that link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek, for sponsoring Giants Collective, and let's go Giants! Let's go Giants. Fired up, ready for the freaking season. It's never a long summer, but the last 2 weeks have seemed like 2 months.
I'm just laughing at what William said. Yeah, I am too expensive to do the ad reads. I have a very expensive rate after the demand, after the in the cloud read.
Oh.
So I doubled my rate. So that's why I'm.
Oh, I can say this: if in the cloud ever comes back, it's there. Just know it's right. It's in the queue. It's in the queue. So have no fear. It's right there. It's right in my beck and call. So we got it. Borna, you watching? Let's go. All right, let's get to a couple of these. Corey, thank you, brother. He says wide receivers running open all over the place and DJ just not seeing them. That changes week 1, 2025. This is a really good point. I think Anthony started first last time. Chris, and I know we've talked about Russ a lot, and we kind of gush over him, not because we think he's an elite guy anymore, but compared to Daniel Jones, he is elite. How much it does that make a difference? And I think it's a great point, because I think a lot of people forget that there was wide open receivers all over the place. Anthony, you mentioned it a number of times about last year when we did that flea flicker, how he either took a sack or whatever the hell he did. This guy's running all over. Russ ain't missing those throws. So how big of a difference can that be when Russ finds these guys?
Of course, a big difference. Daniel Jones is I think his one good year. I don't even think his rookie year was good. It was good for a rookie year, but I didn't consider it a good year. His one good year, I will continue to say he had a good year in 2022, but the reason he had a good year is because we dummied down the playbook, and Brian Dable was able to play to his strengths. He basically said, look at one side of the field. If nobody's open, take off with your legs. Run the ball with Saquon Barkley. He didn't play the quarterback position the way an elite quarterback does. Not that Russ is elite anymore, but he's a guy that's much more capable at scanning the field, pre-snap reads, throwing with anticipation, throwing before the break. And yes, that's from that standpoint, he is a major improvement at the quarterback position. And guys like Wan'Dale Robinson specifically, I think are going to flourish of that aspect of his game, being able to throw with anticipation, because he's a receiver that runs a lot of quick, short routes that a lot of times you will throw the ball before he's out of his break. And if you could lead a guy like that, he could probably pick up an extra 3 or 4 yards after the catch. So yes, I think Russell Wilson will make a major impact compared to the most recent quarterback play that the New York Giants have had, mainly due to the things that we just talked about and that we've talked about for several weeks on the show. Anticipation, pre-snap reads, and he's a leader at the end of the day. So, yes, I think by no means do I think Russell Wilson's an elite quarterback, a Pro Bowl quarterback at this point. I think he's a below-average starter, if I'm being honest, with the capability of maybe being an average starter this year. But I don't see much more than that. But even that is a big improvement over what the Giants have had, certainly since 2023 at the quarterback position.
Adriana, how huge is it for Russ to be finding these open guys, or Daniel Jones and throw the ball later, take a sack?
I think that's one of the reasons why we're all so excited about Russ Wilson, right? Is we watched, whether or not you watched the tape, if you watched any of the games, you saw guys running wide open. And the frustration that we all had is Jones doesn't even see them. So, I think that obviously we have our concerns about Russ, but at the end of the day, I think he's going to be more likely to pull the trigger on the moon ball, on any type of deep ball, or just if he sees guys open, he's going to do his best to get the ball in their hands and let them make a play. So I think we really have that to look forward to. I also think that, yes, we're going to see a lot of Malik Neighbors, but I think Russ is going to help out guys like Wan'Dale and Darius and Theo Johnson, who, had okay years last year, but with a quarterback who's more accurate like Russell is. I think they're all really going to benefit from having him. So I just need the offensive line to do their job so we can see, a very capable Russ Wilson out there.
Anthony, I know you, big Russ fan like me, we kind of gushed over it when we got him. And again, it's because average is so much better than what this quarterback room was. How big of a difference is having Russell Wilson to find a Malik Neighbors 40 yards down the field as opposed to taking a sack?
I mean, it's major. And my favorite stat to dive into when previewing this season for Malik Neighbors and Russell Wilson, there's two of them. Number one, Russell Wilson had a 54% completion rate on 20-plus yard targets last season. So he completed over half of his passes deep downfield, which is almost unheard of. He was well above the average, and he was number one in the NFL in completion percentage when throwing deep. The other stat is Malik Neighbors had 29 targets deep downfield last season. He caught only 7 of them. The overwhelming majority of them were wildly inaccurate and uncatchable, and he only put up about 200 yards on deep receiving. Now, if you look at when he was in college with Jaden Daniels, a quarterback who could throw the deep ball, he had the same amount of deep targets, 29, but instead of 200 yards, he put up 740 yards. He was actually hit in stride and able to run with the ball downfield. That's the difference maker for this offense. You've got a quarterback that can throw the deep ball, and you have who was the best deep threat coming out of that loaded 2024 wide receiver class. And how great Malik Neighbors was last year with only 200 deep receiving yards. He put up 1,000 yards on receptions from 0 to 15 yards, essentially. It's wild. It's insane. And now he's got a quarterback that actually can hit him downfield. So if you look at that discrepancy between the 200 yards last season on the same amount of targets versus the 700 something yards at LSU, you're talking about 500 yards left on the table for Malik Nabers by bad quarterback play essentially last season. And now you've got the best deep passing quarterback in the NFL. Not even, you could say Russ is washed. You could say he's not what he used to be. He was the best deep passer last season. There's other things that he doesn't do as well as he did many years ago, but he's still the best deep ball thrower in the NFL statistically. So you will see a major increase in production from Malik Nabers in that regard. And that's why I keep saying Triple Crown. I think it's going to happen because he's going to be wide open downfield a lot, and he's no longer going to be waiting for one of those droppers, that pop-up fly out that Daniel Jones was throwing him last year against Dallas. I think we all remember that. It was ridiculous. So, yeah, I think Nabers is going to run rampant this year, and I think Russ is going to hit him on a ton of deep shots, and they're going to pad the stat sheet.
And the other thing about Russ is throwing the ball on time. You think about what Malik Nabers did against Indianapolis. And again, none of it was really a deep throw. A lot of it was run after catch. So think about him running free if they're running a drag. Now, some of these, like a drag route takes a long time to develop. So that's going to depend on the O-line. But if they can get a drag route or a slant, they want to line them up in the slot or whatever it is, Russ hitting this guy on time and allowing him to run after he catches the football. That's just something Daniel Jones didn't do. And there's so many yards left in the field, even with a completed pass. If a guy in the slot, a guy in a slant, a guy in an out or whatever it is, where they have to sit there and wait or the ball's behind him, and it allows the defensive back to catch up. Whereas opposed, if a wide receiver is running in full stride and he's catching that thing in full stride, Malik Nabers is going to run away from everybody. Darius Slayton can run away from people. If they put Jalen Hyatt in the slot, which they should, and we've all screamed about that for months. Imagine Jalen Hyatt catching a freaking slant pass in stride. You're telling me he can't take a 7-yard pass 70 yards? He definitely could. That's what he brings to this offense. He's got to catch the ball. But I would love to see the Giants try to do different things like that. And again, it was just preseason, but another aspect, the Giants looked incredible with screen passes. This is something they have not run well at all for years. Some of that's bad timing. Some of that's bad offensive line play. But whatever the hell they did, the fact that their timing was that good in preseason, I think it bodes well for screen passes as well. So again, while Russell Wilson isn't a top 5 or top 10 quarterback at this juncture, he's incredibly effective, and the Giants offense is no longer one-dimensional. So you can't just key on Malik Nabers. You can't just key on the right, like when Saquon Barkley is here, all they had to do was key on Saquon Barkley because you never worried about Daniel Jones beating you. You could play these soft zones and just let these guys, he was going to check it down. So you didn't have to worry about anybody getting behind the defense, which allowed defenders to step up. And when you're playing within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, how can you run against that anyway? Russ is going to loosen up that defense. It's just a much different looking offense. And with how good our defense is on paper, this offense ain't going to have to put up 30 points to win football games. So listen, maybe I'm just hyping myself up. I can do it every year, but I really do feel like this year is different because of the players they added. They just seem much more professional.
He's certainly capable. He's certainly capable, Bad Dog, and he has the weapons. Nabers is going to make him look even better than what he is. He's that type of wide receiver, and I think Russ, like Anthony said, he's going to throw the deep ball. He's not going to care if Nabers is double covered. He's going to trust
down there somewhere, Chris.
Yeah, he's going to trust a guy like that to go up and get the football. So by no means was I saw somebody in the chat say, "Oh, don't call him below average." When I say that, I mean a slightly below average starting quarterback. He's still a quality, capable starting quarterback in the NFL, which is something the Giants haven't had for the most part in a long time. And when you look at the weapons like Malik Nabers on this roster, yeah, I think he's going to be capable enough to help this team win games if this defense is going to be as strong as we hope and think they potentially could be. And I think that's why we're all excited, because I do see big play capabilities. I see, and I've said it his name before. If the defense is going to eye on a guy like a Malik Nabers, which I expect Washington to do, by the way, week 1, I expect Nabers to see a ton of double coverage. Darius Slayton's going to benefit. Darius Slayton is going to benefit. He's never had a quarterback that could throw the deep ball like a Russell Wilson and have a guy like Nabers on the other side commanding the attention that he's going to demand. Somebody like, I don't know if it'll happen week 1, but a player like him is going to benefit because he's certainly a capable receiver as well when he's up against the cornerback too and he's seeing single coverage. So I think this entire roster is going to be much better offensively than they've been in recent years, for sure. No doubt about it.
That's why I have Slayton getting 1,000 yards this year. It's only 59 a game. It's not like it's a ton. So I definitely could see that happening, but I'm freaking ready. I'm ready. Adriana mentioned her. I'm nervous too because
Yeah.
normally I go into the year like it's kind of like false bravado. Like I know we're probably not going to win, but like I feel like we really are going to win, and now I'm kind of nervous because I'm like I feel like they should be good. Where normally it's like, well, I'm not really nervous if they win, they're great, but I don't really expect them to. But I actually do expect them to win week 1. Our guy, the legendary SPP Williams from across the pond, 1 a.m. over there. Almost. It's 12:50. He's ready for some football. Happy collective preview day. Players look excited. Everyone focused and improving. 30 of them stay in the field after practice. Russ has them focused. And
I did hear that.
yeah. I forgot who started first, but any of you guys can jump in. I know we mentioned this before. Something I maybe overlooked is Russ's leadership. How important is Russ's leadership for this wide receiver core is pretty young. So Daniel Jones really wasn't that guy. How important is Russ's leadership to these young guys?
I think it's going to make a big difference for a lot of them. I saw something that said, that Jones so far along the way in all of his years with the Giants was trying to figure it out for himself, that because he was still trying to figure out on his own, he wasn't really capable of being able to help others in the leadership type of way that someone like Russ is able to do. And I think that's such a really good point. Russ has seen almost everything you could possibly imagine as a veteran quarterback who's been in the league for over a decade at this point. That, when we hear Darius Slayton say he's disgustingly consistent, and you hear guys say that they stayed after practice and they met early and they did this and they did that with Russell, like that is going to go so much further than so many other things. And I think we hear about this leadership aspect, but you're starting to see it, right? You see the way Malik Neighbors talks in interviews, the way that he has matured a lot. And I think Russell being a leader and a captain and showing up every single day and doing the same thing, whether or not they had a good practice or a bad practice. I heard Paul Schwartz say that after Darius said that Russ is disgustingly consistent, that, love it or hate it, that's what Russ is going to do. And if they get blown out week 1, 40-0, like they did a couple years ago, Russ is still going to come in on Tuesday and be his positive, happy self and say, all right, we're going to put that behind us and we're going to move forward. This is what we can do to improve. And I think that having that type of mentality also from a leadership perspective is going to do wonders for this team. We saw a lot of it last year, like the dejection and the way that the players, we saw their body language and the way that they spoke to the media and the things that they said, like they were not in a good way. And I think that having someone like Russ is going to help them if they have bad days like that. And you see the way that he high fives every single person that they come off the field. That stuff, it sounds cheesy and it probably is cheesy, but I think it is going to help them in the long run. And I think it's going to help a lot of the younger guys grow. Someone like Theo Johnson, who's only in his second year. This team is really young. And, I think that having Russ and having Jameis too is really important in so many ways. So I'm not on board with trading any one of them. I think they're very valuable to this team.
Yeah, without question. Anthony, actually, now I think about it, I kind of wanted to touch on something you posted or Fireside Giants posted. The thing about Deonte Banks, what was do you believe any of that? What was your takeaway from that?
Oh, the Washington Post article?
Yes.
Well, I think it's funny that the Washington Post published this article in the days leading up to our game against Washington. Suspicious. To me, how that article read was that somebody who used to work for the Giants is blaming losing their job on Deonte Banks. And that would be Jerome Henderson. Like, it feels so obvious that Jerome Henderson spoke to somebody at the Washington Post and gave this terrible review of Deonte Banks. Now, I don't think that it's completely void of truth, though. I think Deonte Banks does need to mature. I think he does need to grow up. I saw again today when I was watching those Deonte Banks versus Terry McLaurin clips, I found another clip of him giving up on that play against Jalen Hurts last year. I forgot about that for a brief second, but then I watched it again. I was like, that was egregious. Like, there is such a clear and obvious way to make a tackle there, or at least attempt to, and he just didn't. So he does need to grow up. He does need to mature, but he also needed more leadership around him. He lost Xavier McKinney. The Giants secondary did not have a leader last year. Now they have Javon Holland, who's a great leader. I think Paulson Adebo is a good leader as well. So there's more infrastructure for Deonte Banks to succeed. And so I think that it really, truly was just a hit piece from somebody who was salty. And I think that Deonte Banks just needs to keep his head down and keep his eyes straight forward and just focus on the task at hand. He's got all of the talent in the world physically. Now it's just about refining a couple things in his game. I still believe in Deonte Banks to be a really solid pro for the Giants.
Did either one of you guys read that article? What did you think about it?
Yeah, I read it. It's a hit piece, like Anthony said. And like Anthony also said, I'm sure there's some truth to it. There's been hit pieces on the Giants before that have rang true. I'm sure, at least partially true. The Wink Martindale thing when he got fired, right? Whispers came out that Dable didn't do a good job handling the coaching staff. I'm sure there was some at least great truths to that. So I'm sure there's some truths to what was said. But yeah, it was a hit piece, and I have not given up on Deonte Banks. I've said the last couple of months that I think Banks is going to have a good year, and maybe I'll be dead wrong because I like the pick a lot when they made it, and thus far he hasn't lived up to it. But I think due to the fact that he's going to have a lesser role this year, the fact he's going to be a CB2, the fact that you're going to have by far the best pass rush the Giants have had since he's been on the roster is only going to lend itself to him playing better, plus more motivation with a guy like Cordell Flott pushing him. Both of them are listed as CB2 on the most recent depth chart from what I saw. I think Deonte Banks is going to respond. I think all the tools are there. We say it every week, Bad Dog, when we call the games. The coverage is almost there every play. He's got to turn his head. He doesn't have the instincts that need to be there for an elite cornerback in the NFL, and hopefully he gets better at that. But I still believe in Deonte Banks. By no means do I think he's going to be a lockdown CB1, but I think he's going to be a capable starting quarterback in the NFL, and I think you're going to see that this year.
What the hell was I going to say? I'm going to say something there. Oh, you think that's a little bulletin board material for him? You think that can fire him up, spark him?
I hope so.
Sure.
I'm good. Maybe the timing was good, Anthony. Maybe the timing was good for that to come out and him to go out there and prove a point. Someone saying, I'm the reason they lost their job. I'm going to go out there and prove that I belong and that I can be a really good, cover corner. And again, his coverage skills are good, but this is covering up Adrian and Chris. Cuda, thank you so much. There's a player manager in the New York Giants scare you. Let me read this again. Player management of New York Giants scare you guys at all this year. For example, Graham Gano was hurt. Seemed like they were hard-headed. We had our punter out there. Also, I remember the issue with them prepping Locke. What do you guys think? You think that just was kind of something they went through last year because they were going through the motions and they have different players this year, so they're going to handle it differently, or does this still concern you guys?
No, I think that's a reasonable concern last year. Because if you recall, that was the second time that happened with Gano. The year before he had injuries, and he had an injury going into the game last year, and the Giants had no backup plan. So I do think that is a reasonable critique of Dable and his coaching staff last year. I think, you have to hope he grows. At the end of the day, we have to realize that Dable is still a guy that doesn't have a ton of head coaching experience. He has never been a head coach before he got this job with the Giants, so there's going to be growing pains that come with that. Granted, it was year 3. I'm not making excuses for the guy, but I think that is a very reasonable critique of Dable and the coaching staff, the way that they've handled several things with player management on this team. But the most notable one was what I just said, the handling of Graham Gano when he was banged up going into that game, not to carry a backup kicker when he had the same injury concerns the year before. And I remember, who was it, Bad Dog? They had, was it Adoree Jackson? They had fielding punt return.
Yep.
Dable's first or second year as the head coach. He's done several questionable things at times that I think you are fair to be critical of Dable in terms of the way that with player management and things like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was Adoree Jackson. They had him back there fielding punts because nobody could catch the damn ball, and he ended up getting hurt. I think that was 2020. I think that was 2022. I forgot what year that was because I think it was his first year because I remember not really. I thought Dable did a really good job year 1. And it was hard to question anything he did. And I think that was like, that was very questionable that he did that. Before we get out of here, one last question. How big of a difference do you think it is having Mike Kafka call the plays from the sideline as opposed to the booth?
Huge. I was pounding the table for this a couple of years ago when he was calling the plays and the plays weren't being called properly. I think, his last season calling the plays when Dable stripped him of the play calling duties, I think it was pretty clear that Mike Kafka was struggling. And he was asked about it. Dable was asked about it. Kafka was asked about it too. Why aren't you on the sideline? What are the advantages of being up there? And I just think it's so simple. If you're on the sidelines, your communication is so much more accessible for the players. It's easier to communicate. It's easier to say, hey, this is what I need you to do a little bit better on this play. So we can execute this route. I need you to round it off here. There's so many different nuances that go into football and that go into the schematics of an offense. And when you're up in the box, relaying all that to assistants through a headset, you can't actually keep your finger on the pulse. You can't totally drive the car, So I think that it's huge to have Kafka on the sideline. I think we've already seen the effects of that from the preseason. I think when you're on the sideline, you also have a better feeling of the momentum of the game and the tempo of the game versus when you're sitting, you're watching elsewhere. I mean, I think we can all kind of relate to that because we can watch the game from home and it feels one way, but then when you're in the stadium and you're on the field nearly, it feels completely different. And I think there's a difference when you're on the sideline calling the plays, can feel the momentum and can control the tempo and the pace better. And that's the number one thing that I was impressed with in the preseason was the tempo of the offense. I thought every quarterback, all four of them that stepped in there, had a great rhythm, and it was because of Mike Kafka's tempo and his play calling. So I think it's going to make a huge difference for this offense. Again, I think it's going to create an easier means of communication. Hopefully there's less butting of the heads between Dable and his staff as a result as well. And hopefully we just get a smoother offense that can finally score in the red zone like we actually did in 2022 when Kafka was calling the plays, but it's been a minute.
I'll tell you.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry. No, just they have to be flexible. And when things aren't working, try something different. And this has been my biggest point of contention with this front office and with the coaching staff. Why are you beating a dead horse over and over again? And it's not working. The horse is dead. Like, move on to something else. So I'm glad that Kafka is doing this because wasn't working that well when you were up in the booth. Try something different, see if it works. And I think Anthony makes such a good point about preseason, the fact that the tempo was so much better. It seemed like the communication was better. They were able to move the ball down the field. And maybe part of that was just because it's preseason, but I think all of that stuff instills confidence. And when you're the offensive coordinator and you're working with the head coach on maybe changing up the play call here and there, being able to be right next to them versus upstairs is absolutely going to make a difference. It's going to help increase the timing. I hope that means there's going to be less delay of games. There's going to be less penalties because the communication, the game plays, and everything like that is going to be able to get off a lot faster than it was prior.
Yeah, and also just for the maturation of Jackson Dart. And that's why when I heard that they were bringing him down, I'm like, that's probably the main reason. I mean, the main reason why he got this job to begin with was his reputation with the evolution of Patrick Mahomes. Well, now he's going to have a more hands-on approach with Jackson Dart. And I'm going to make a bold prediction, Anthony. I know you're a big Kafka guy. It seems like you're all aboard the Kafka train. Giants are going to have a couple extra third-round picks next year because I think Kafka's going to get a head coaching job. We all know in the NFL that teams are always looking for that next offensive mastermind. I think Jackson Dart, when he does get to play this year, is going to look good. And I think Kafka's going to get a lot of the credit for that. And the Giants will benefit from the new Rooney Rule. I think they're going to get a couple of third-round picks when Kafka probably will get a head coaching job next year. That's my bold prediction going into the year. I think Mike Kafka is a head coach in the NFL in 2026.
One thing I'll say about Kafka, I think he does have really creative plays. He is a really good creative mind when it comes to offensive scheme. He didn't have the players to execute it. I feel like he does have a player to execute it now in Russell Wilson. And the one thing I'll say, Anthony, to piggyback on what you said about the tempo, when you're getting to the line of scrimmage with 8 seconds, 7 seconds, you have no opportunity to change the play at the line of scrimmage. You have no opportunity to read the defense and see where these guys are coming from. So you can't make an adjustment. So when you snap the ball with a second to go, you're done. If you're getting up to the line of scrimmage, you get that play call in, you're confident in the play call, you get up to the huddle, there's 18 seconds. Well, now you can make all kinds of adjustments. You can see the matchups you like. You can change the blocking scheme. You can change the play at the line of scrimmage. You can do so much more when you have an opportunity to kind of get up there and see what's going on and take a pre-snap read of the field and see where you want to go with the ball. Perfect example is Jackson Dart's first touchdown pass. He got up there. He checked what he wanted to see. He saw the one-on-one with little Jordan Humphrey. He checked where he threw a perfect pass with the linebacker right in his chest. That type of thing, you can say it's preseason or whatever. All you have to do is watch the way they played in preseason last year as opposed to the way they played in preseason this year. That's how you can tell the Giants are a different team. It doesn't matter. Every year, the defenses are vanilla. Every year, the offense is vanilla. Last year, we scored 30 points total. This year, we scored over 30 points in every game. I don't care if it's preseason. That's night and day for this Giants team on offense. And it's because, like you said, a lot has to do with the pace of the offense, getting to the line of scrimmage and able to do that stuff. So with that said, that brings us to the end of another edition of Giants Collective. Sunday is a big day. Next time we see you guys, it'll be Tuesday. It'll be 1-0. Damn straight. So I want to let you guys get out of here and watch the game tonight. Again, want to give a really big shout out to Sleeper. There they are. Big shout out to Sleeper. Again, go over there, check them out. Use that promo code HMA to get a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit, all the way up to $100. And of course, huge shout out to SeatGeek. You guys can check out SeatGeek. Use that promo code Giants Collective 10 and get 10% off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast. You can check us out on TikTok and Instagram. And hey, enjoy the game tonight for Adriana, Anthony, and Entertainah. See you guys on Tuesday. Let's go Giants. We out.
Giants.
Peace. Let's go G-Man.